The excavation site on Taraxis IV had been active for 16 standard cycles when disaster struck. Zilar Tun, chief synorchaeologist of the Arklaxian Scientific Consortium, felt the first tremors through his sensitive footpads. His 6 eyes widened simultaneously. "Evacuate. Now," he bellowed, his translator converting his natural clicking speech into the Council standard tongue. The cave system, believed to be an ancient progenitor outpost, groaned as tectonic plates shifted. His junior researchers scrambled toward the exit tunnels, tools and specimens abandoned in their haste. Zilar Tun counted the fleeing forms. 3 missing. Vrektal, Solinar, Ziana. He called into his communicator. Only static responded. As the tremors intensified, Zilar Tun faced the collapsing inner chamber. Protocol demanded evacuation. Every instinct in his 6-limbed body urged retreat. Yet something compelled him forward, the same intuition that had made him the most decorated synorchaeologist in Council space. The inner chamber was already half-collapsed when he reached it. Through swirling dust, he spotted Ziana's crumpled form beneath a fallen column. Beyond her, Vrektal and Solinar lay motionless near the chamber's central pedestal. And on that pedestal, untouched amid the destruction, a crystalline object pulsed with soft blue light. Another violent tremor knocked Zilar Tun to the ground. The exit would seal in moments. Dragging himself forward, he reached toward the crystal and hesitated. 20 cycles of field experience screamed danger. But the object called to him. His scaled fingers closed around it as the ceiling gave way. Utterly irresponsible, High Administrator Quel'Thos paced the sterile recovery chamber of the Council scientific outpost. 3 researchers dead, millions in equipment destroyed. And for what? Another trinket. Zilar Tun, his left appendages in regeneration casings, gestured to the sealed containment unit where the crystal pulsed. Not a trinket, Administrator. Progenitor technology. Active progenitor technology. Quel'Thos' expression shifted from anger to uneasy fascination. The progenitors, gone for 50 millennia, had advanced beyond any known civilization before vanishing. Their artifacts were the most valued prizes in archaeological circles. Initial scans suggest it's a data crystal. Zilar Tun continued. If we can translate its contents, proceed with caution, Quel'Thos ordered. Full containment protocols. 2 standard months later, Zilar Tun watched in horror as senior linguist Talver convulsed behind the containment field, neural connectors still attached to the crystal. Beside him, junior linguist Malus collapsed, blood seeping from her auditory cavities. "Shut it down," Medical Officer Vren shouted, rushing to the fallen researchers. Too late. Both were dead before the emergency protocols activated. Later, reviewing security footage, Zilar Tun observed the moment everything changed. The crystal had flared briefly, transmitting directly into the linguist's neural interfaces. Whatever killed them had come from within the artifact itself. A security measure, specialist Krav theorized, designed to prevent unauthorized access. Despite the deaths, the translation program had partially succeeded. 3 segments of data had been extracted before the fatal surge. Zilar Tun studied the preliminary translation with growing unease. System designation. Sol. 3rd orbital body harbors. Primitive but evolutionarily unstable. Genetic capacity for exponential advancement. Should they ever reach the stars, they will become unstoppable. The warning must be heeded. The High Council chamber on Galactic Central fell silent as Zilar Tun completed his presentation. 19 representatives of the Council's founding species regarded him with expressions ranging from skepticism to outright dismissal. "You summoned this august body," Councillor Trasmol of the Vorathi Dominion said, "because of fragmentary warnings about primitives on an unremarkable world in the galactic periphery." Not just warnings, Zilar Tun insisted. Security measures that killed to protect the information. The progenitors considered this vital enough to encode with lethal protections. The progenitors vanished 50,000 years ago. countered Counselor Orcs. Whatever primitives concern them have likely evolved or gone extinct. Your humans barely control their planetary weather, let alone pose interstellar threats. I request resources to continue investigation. Sealer-Tun persisted, and recommend establishing observation of the Sol system. The Council deliberated briefly before Grand Arbiter Zivix rendered judgment. Request for major research allocation denied. Limited observation approved as precautionary measure only. This council will not divert significant resources based on fragmentary data from a civilization whose paranoia likely contributed to their extinction. In his private laboratory, Sealer-Tun compiled his findings into encrypted files. The council might dismiss the warning, but something about it resonated with him. He'd spent his career studying extinct civilizations, and patterns emerged across millennia. Species rose, reached their apex, and fell. Only the progenitors had achieved such advancement their technology still functioned after 50,000 years. If they feared these humans, his secure terminal chimed. An incoming transmission from Delaware University's historical archives. Professor Jexnar, an old colleague, appeared on screen. I found something, Jexnar said without preamble. 3 previous archaeological expeditions uncovered similar warnings about Sol. All records subsequently classified. What happened to the researchers? Sealer-Tun asked, already suspecting the answer. All dead within a standard year of their discoveries. Accidents, mostly. Sealer-Tun's appendages twitched involuntarily. Send me everything. Through the private channel. Already done. Sealer, be careful. Someone doesn't want this information circulating. After the transmission ended, Sealer-Tun accessed the secret observation feeds from Sol that the Council believed only they could access. The blue-green world rotated serenely, ignorant of distant eyes watching. What made you so dangerous? He whispered to the unremarkable planet. And what will happen when you reach the stars? He began encoding his findings in obscure academic journals, fragmenting the information across seemingly unrelated publications. If the pattern held, he didn't have much time, but perhaps enough to ensure the warning wouldn't die with him. Something about humans terrified the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever known. And soon enough, the galaxy would discover why. Dr. Ananya Patel stared at the quantum tunneling results with disbelief. This can't be right. Run it again. Her assistant, Jamal, frowned at the holographic display. That's the 7th confirmation, Doctor. The particles aren't just tunneling. They're disappearing from our space-time entirely and reappearing exactly where we predicted. But that would mean... Dr. Patel's voice trailed off as the implications crashed over her. Faster than light travel, Jamal whispered. We've done it. Across a galaxy measured in thousands of light years, 17 distinct species with council membership froze collectively as their sensors detected the impossible. A quantum ripple from a previously unremarkable star system, bearing the unmistakable signature of artificial space-time manipulation. They weren't supposed to achieve this for at least another century. First contact specialist Zertan hissed to the emergency council session. Our models predicted. Your models are evidently flawed. Grand Arbiter Zivix interrupted. The humans have achieved quantum tunneling transportation. The containment window is closing. 6 months later, the Council first contact vessel Enlightened Discourse emerged from FTL on the edges of the Sol system. Their sensors immediately cataloged hundreds of human vessels, crude by Council standards, but demonstrating engineering creativity that gave the contact team pause. Commander Rilzar reviewed the final briefing. Remember, show limited technology only. Standard protocol. Present humans as primitive but promising. Establish diplomatic channels. Implement technology restrictions under developing species protocols. His first contact team nodded in unison, except for cultural specialist Maven, who continued studying human transmission intercepts with growing concern. Commander, she said quietly, I think we may have miscalculated. Explain. These transmissions indicate 17 distinct governmental systems operating simultaneously on their homeworld, thousands of languages, multiple competing economic models, yet they function as a unified entity in space. This level of cultural complexity while maintaining functional unity is unprecedented. Interesting but irrelevant. Rills are dismissed. Prepare for first broadcast. In Geneva, Switzerland, the newly formed Human Diplomatic Service scrambled to prepare for humanity's debut on the galactic stage. At the center of the controlled chaos stood Ambassador Elena Chen, outwardly projecting the calm dignity expected of Earth's first interstellar representative. No one outside her security detail knew about the military-grade neural enhancements concealed beneath her elegant appearance, or that psychological profiles had selected her specifically because her brain patterns showed the least aggressive response to simulated first contact scenarios. "The alien vessel is broadcasting," her aide reported. "Standard greeting package with translation matrix." Chen nodded. "Send our response package. Begin preparations for the reception." The formal diplomatic reception at United Nations headquarters proceeded according to carefully choreographed protocols. Commander Rilzar led the council delegation, cataloging human weaknesses even as he exchanged pleasantries. Fragile skeletal structures, limited sensory range, no natural defenses, emotional decision-making processes. Primitive indeed. "We welcome you to the greater galactic community," he announced through his translator. "Though young, your species shows remarkable potential." Ambassador Chen bowed slightly. "We are honored by your presence and eager to learn from species with greater experience among the stars." The perfect response. Humble, respectful. Rilzar relaxed marginally. Perhaps this integration would proceed smoothly after all. The explosion shattered the momentary calm. 3 Volcrief extremists, a species known for their genetic purist ideology, burst through security barriers. Acid projectile weapons raised, they charged directly toward the human delegation. Death to contamination. The lead attacker shrieked. Council security froze momentarily, unprepared for this shocking protocol breach. In that fractional hesitation, Ambassador Chen moved. Later, reviewing the security footage, Rilzar would struggle to comprehend what he witnessed. The human diplomat, supposedly unarmed and without natural defenses, neutralized 3 armed attackers in under 6 seconds. Her movements blurred beyond normal biological capability. With nothing but a ceremonial writing implement, she disabled each attacker with precision strikes to neurological weak points no human should have knowledge of. Most disturbing of all, not a single drop of blood was spilled. When security finally responded, they found Chen calmly attending to the council delegates who had been closest to the attack. "Are you injured, Commander?" she asked Rilzar, concern evident in her expression. "How did you?" he began. "Basic diplomatic security training," she replied smoothly. "Now shall we continue our discussions? I believe we were about to address cooperative scientific exchange." Later that evening, when Rilzar attempted to access security recordings of the incident, he found them mysteriously corrupted. His request for Chen's complete biological profile was denied by human authorities, citing privacy protocols. In his secured residence on Galactic Central, Silar Tun, now elderly and confined to a medical support chair, watched pirated footage of the diplomatic reception with trembling appendages. After 3 assassination attempts, the council had placed him under protective custody, house arrest in all but name. "You see it, don't you?" he wheezed to his only remaining ally, his former student Vilamin. "The speed, the precision. No human should move that way." Vilamin nodded solemnly. "I've been analyzing their genetic samples, Master. There are anomalies, sequences that appear artificially optimized. Someone or something modified human genetics thousands of years ago." "The progenitors," Silar Tun whispered. "That's not all." Vilamin activated a secure data crystal. "I've discovered evidence of systematic information erasure in our historical archives. 27 instances of documented contact with Sol system entities over the past 15,000 years, all deleted from official records. Someone doesn't want us to know about previous human encounters, Sealarton concluded. The question is why. Velamine's voice dropped to a whisper. I believe someone is frightened of what humans might become if they learn their true nature. Master, the genetic modifications I've found, they're not just enhancements. They're potential, coded to activate under specific conditions. What conditions? That's what terrifies me, she replied. The triggers appear to be stress, conflict, and existential threat. The more humans are challenged, the more dangerous they become, Sealarton finished, and we just challenged them on the galactic stage. Beyond the window of his prison-like quarters, the endless cityscape of Galactic Central glittered with million-year-old stability. How quickly, he wondered, would that stability crumble when humanity fully awakened to its potential? The ancient warning pulsed in his mind like the crystal that had started his investigation. Should they ever reach the stars, they will become unstoppable. Humanity had reached the stars, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. 15 years after first contact, the human colony New Horizon flourished on Epsilon Eridani II. 11,000 colonists had transformed the rocky outcroppings into agricultural communes, research stations, and small but growing townships. They'd followed all council environmental regulations, maintained the required buffer zones around indigenous flora, and established peaceful relations with neighboring Viridian mining operations. None of that mattered when the terraforming nanites were released. Governor Maya Okafor was hosting a delegation from Earth when the containment alarms blared. Perimeter breach, Sector 7. Unknown airborne contaminant detected. By the time emergency protocols activated, the cloud of microscopic machines had already spread across 3 settlements. Security footage would later show the horror in excruciating detail, colonists collapsing as the nanites liquefied organic matter from within, transforming human bodies into nutrient slurry while leaving buildings, equipment, and most tellingly, valuable mineral deposits untouched. When the carnage ended, 11,023 humans had been reduced to component elements. These negotiations are a farce, Admiral James Chen growled inside the private Earth delegation chamber. The Viridian Consortium deliberately massacred our people, and the Council offers us mining rights on an asteroid belt. Their official finding states it was an industrial accident. Diplomatic liaison Sophia Ray reminded him. Tragic, but unintentional. Bullshit. Chen slammed his fist on the polished table. We'd recovered fragments of the nanite programming. They were specifically calibrated to human DNA. Ray's eyes darted to the corners of the room, silently warning about potential surveillance. The Council has made its determination, Admiral. We must appear to accept it. Appear? Her subtle smile held no warmth. The Viridian Consortium may have powerful allies in the Council, but they've forgotten something important about humans. What's that? We don't forget, and we don't forgive. 3 days of formal mourning followed on Earth and all human colonies. Flags lowered, public addresses delivered, memorial services held. Then silence. Human diplomatic channels went quiet. Trade continued. The matter appeared settled, if tensely so. The Galactic Council, after issuing formal censure of Viridian industrial negligence and mandating a token reparation package, turned its attention to a territorial dispute between the Calexian Federation and the Tulaxor Dominion. 2 weeks later, the Viridian Stock Exchange collapsed. Without warning or apparent cause, trading algorithms malfunctioned simultaneously. Authentication protocols failed. Transaction records vanished. Backup systems inexplicably contained corrupted data identical to the primary systems, a technical impossibility. Before the economic shockwaves could settle, every Viridian communication network began broadcasting the same footage. Senior consortium executives discussing the controlled elimination of New Horizon Colony, with specific references to council members who had guaranteed minimal consequences. Across 17 Viridian worlds, citizens watched their leadership admit to mass murder for mineral rights. As public outrage erupted, something else occurred that terrified Viridian military command far more. Their entire defense grid went offline simultaneously. At that precise moment, a human fleet materialized in Viridian home space through previously undetectable wormholes, a technology the Council's scientific authorities had deemed theoretically impossible. Commander Sarah Kagame's transmission reached every Viridian device capable of receiving signals. This is the Earth Memorial Fleet. Your leadership has committed genocide against our people. Your defense systems are neutralized. Your secure communications compromised. Your financial system dismantled. We could destroy your civilization with a single command. She paused, her expression unflinching. Instead, we offer terms. Surrender all individuals involved in the New Horizon massacre for trial under Galactic law. Relinquish claims to the Epsilon Eridani system. Establish a truth commission regarding Council involvement. You have 6 hours to comply. The Viridian Consortium capitulated in 4. Impossible. Councillor Trasmol of the Vorathi Dominion pounded his appendage against the council chamber floor. Humans cannot possess wormhole technology. Their scientific development follows a predictable trajectory. We've observed it across thousands of species. Science Director Kelveric manipulated holographic displays with nervous gestures. The evidence is irrefutable. Not only did they utilize targeted micro-wormholes, but they demonstrated system penetration capabilities that should be beyond any species at their development stage. More disturbing, Security Director Palak added, "Our investigation found that human officials had privately contacted Viridian leadership 3 days before their response. They offered identical terms and were rebuffed." They warned them. Councillor Erix asked incredulously. Yes, they gave their enemies opportunity to avoid destruction. Palak's voice held uncomfortable admiration. When most species achieve technological superiority, they eliminate threats. Humans offered mercy first. Grand Arbiter Zivix stared at the tactical simulations. The implications are concerning. Their displayed capabilities represent a small fraction of their actual military potential. They revealed precisely enough to accomplish their objective without exposing their full capabilities. It gets worse. Intelligence Director Froze interjected. We've detected communication between human diplomatic personnel and representatives from the Arcasian Republic, the Jexari Collective, and 5 other council races. They appear to be establishing covert alliances. We must contain the human threat immediately, Trasmol demanded. With what? Zivix replied quietly. If they can penetrate Viridian systems, what makes you believe our defenses would prove more effective? No, we must reconsider our approach to human integration entirely. On a dozen worlds across the galaxy, copies of an underground publication began circulating despite official censorship. Titled Humanity Unbound, The Exponential Threat, the treatise was published under the pseudonym Cassandra. Though informed readers recognized the writing style of the disgraced Xenorchaeologist Sealartun, its central thesis sent shockwaves through academic and military circles alike. The pattern of human advancement wasn't linear or even geometric. It was exponential, with each breakthrough accelerating the next. Most alarming was its conclusion. The demonstration against the Viridian Consortium represents not merely retribution, but warning. Humanity revealed capability centuries beyond their expected development, specifically to establish deterrence without requiring repeated demonstrations. They are simultaneously more powerful and more restrained than any emerging species in documented history. This combination makes them not merely dangerous, but transformative. The galaxy as we know it has already begun to end, not through human conquest, but through human influence. Within days, it became the most illicitly shared document in Council space. Within weeks, it had been translated into over 300 non-human languages. The ancient warning was no longer theoretical. It had awakened, evolved, and demonstrated power beyond the Council's comprehension. And still, They underestimated what was coming. Hull breach in sectors 7 through 12. Life support failing. Reactor containment compromised. Captain Darius Singh ignored the cascade of emergency alerts as the Defiant shuddered around him. The asteroid field's gravitational anomalies had torn his ship nearly in half. By every standard of Council ship design, they were already dead. Reroute power through the auxiliary conduits, he ordered calmly. Activate the secondary hull membrane. Prepare emergency thruster package Delta. His alien exchange officer, Lieutenant Krasanar of the Tulaxian fleet, stared in disbelief. Captain, with respect, the ship's primary structure has failed. We cannot. Human ships don't fail, Lieutenant. Singh interrupted. They adapt. Watch and learn. The Defiant shouldn't have survived. Council engineering experts would later spend months analyzing how a vessel with catastrophic structural damage managed to limp to a repair facility. The official report eventually concluded that human ship design philosophy, with its obsessive redundancy, distributed control systems, and ability to function with up to 70% systems loss, represented a fundamentally different approach to the concept of structural integrity. What went unwritten? No other species would have conceived of building ships this way, because no other species evolved expecting systems to fail. On toxic world Epsilon 9, the Council quarantine warning beacons orbited silently. The planetary surface, saturated with chlorine compounds and radioactive heavy metals, had been officially designated biological hazard level 1, immediately lethal to all known sentient life, which made the unauthorized human settlement discovered there all the more inexplicable. They're not just surviving, Xenobiologist Trella reported to the Emergency Council session. They're thriving, metabolizing compounds that should be instantly fatal, establishing symbiotic relationships with local microorganisms we classified as universally lethal. Impossible, Science Director Kel Varick insisted. No evolutionary pathway could prepare them for these conditions. That's just it, Trella continued, her voice betraying forbidden fascination. They're not evolved for it. They've bioengineered themselves. Genetic modifications tailored to Epsilon 9's specific environment. The council chamber erupted in indignation. Self-modification is prohibited under galactic law. Councillor Eriks declared. The ethical boundaries are apparently different for humans, Grand Arbiter Zivix interrupted. They don't view their genetic code as sacrosanct the way established species do. They see it as adaptable. There's more, Trella added reluctantly. The modifications incorporate beneficial traits from 6 different council species. Somehow, they've achieved xenogenetic compatibility that our scientists declared theoretically impossible. The implications silenced even the most vocal council members. Humans weren't simply adapting to the galaxy, they were incorporating it into themselves. The Cultural Exchange Initiative had seemed harmless, even beneficial, when first proposed by human diplomats. Regular visits between species, cultural immersion experiences, educational programs designed to foster interspecies understanding. No one predicted it would become the galaxy's most subtle conquest. The Releni youth are adopting human musical structures, Cultural Minister Eliza Desai explained to the Earth Diplomatic Court. The Jexeri have embraced human competitive sports. 17 previously hostile species have established trade relations through human intermediaries. How are the traditionalists responding? Ambassador Chen asked. As expected, resistance, then grudging acceptance. But here's what's fascinating. We're tracking a phenomenon xenosociologists are calling idea contagion. Human concepts spread even to worlds with no direct human contact, transmitted through interspecies interaction. Chen smiled slightly. Cultural adaptation has always been one of our strengths. But privately, Earth government recognized the strategic implications. Humans weren't merely participating in galactic culture, they were reshaping it in their image, creating a new interspecies society with humanity at its gravitational center. Captain Maya Rodriguez of the exploration vessel Pathfinder had disappeared with her small crew after attempting to chart the disputed Corellian sector. 3 violently territorial species had claimed the region for centuries, each believing their sacred texts granted them sole rights to its unique stellar phenomena. When the Pathfinder reappeared 6 months later, the galaxy received its most compelling demonstration yet of human diplomatic creativity. The Treaty of Corellian Harmony, Rodriguez explained to the astonished Council Assembly, transforms 3,000 years of genocidal warfare into regulated competition. They're still fighting, Councillor Trasmol observed skeptically. No, Rodriguez corrected. They're competing. We introduced the concept of sports as ritual combat substitute. Each planetary cycle, the 3 species hold Olympic-style games. The winning species receives primary resource rights for that cycle. This is unprecedented, Grand Arbiter Zivix admitted. Our diplomatic corps spent centuries attempting to negotiate peace. With respect, Arbiter, you approached it logically, attempting to divide territory equitably based on objective criteria, Rodriguez replied. We recognized they needed to believe they'd earned victory through strength and skill. The competition satisfies that cultural need without the devastation of warfare. The unspoken revelation stunned the council into silence. In 6 months, a human captain with minimal diplomatic training had solved an intractable conflict by completely ignoring traditional diplomatic approaches. She hadn't attempted to change the species' cultural values. She'd created a new framework that satisfied those values without their destructive consequences. In his secure analysis chamber, Intelligence Director Vros compiled his most restricted report yet. Access was limited to the 7 senior-most council members, an unprecedented security measure. Human adaptive capacity exceeds all predictive models, the report began. Their biological flexibility, technological innovation rate, and cultural assimilation capabilities represent an existential paradigm shift. The most disturbing section came near the conclusion. Evidence increasingly suggests humans aren't merely adapting to galactic civilization as traditionally understood. They are fundamentally transforming it through a process best described as cultural terraforming. Within 3 generation cycles, unless drastically contained, galactic civilization will reorganize around human conceptual frameworks, value systems, and interspecies dynamics. The ancient progenitor warning wasn't hyperbole. It may have understated the magnitude of human transformative potential. When Grand Arbiter Zivix finished reading, he sat motionless for several minutes before activating the secure transmission system to his most trusted advisors. Prepare the containment protocols, he instructed, and pray we aren't already too late. Meanwhile, in a secret research facility beneath the Martian surface, Dr. Ileana Reyes reviewed genetic sequencing data with her team. Project Ascension had accelerated far beyond their original timeline. The xenogenetic integration is stable across all test subjects, her assistant reported. Increased atmospheric adaptation, radiation resistance, enhanced cellular regeneration, all without compromising baseline human cognitive patterns. And the neural enhancements? Dr. Reyes asked. Telepathic capability manifesting in 82% of third-stage subjects. Limited precognition in 17%. Dr. Reyes studied the holographic display, its double helix structure annotated with thousands of modified gene sequences. The ancient progenitor DNA fragments recovered from archaeological sites had provided the key, genetic templates designed to activate human evolutionary potential. Begin preparation for wide-spectrum implementation, she ordered. Humanity's next evolutionary step begins now. Across the solar system and beyond, humanity wasn't merely adapting to the galaxy. They were becoming something the galaxy had never seen before and could no longer control. The Thracian arrived without warning or declaration. One moment, the Juraxian colony world of New Centus functioned peacefully. The next, orbital defense stations went silent as massive organic mechanical vessels materialized in the upper atmosphere. What descended wasn't recognizable as ships, but as nightmares given physical form. Living metal constructs with writhing appendages and pulsing organ-like structures. Worse, they incorporated captured beings from dozens of species as components, partially assimilated into the hive architecture, their consciousnesses subsumed but their bodies preserved as functional units. The Juraxian Defense Forces managed a single transmission before falling. They are inside our systems. They are inside our minds. They err. Within 10 hours, New Centus fell silent, its population of 8 million either dead or absorbed into the collective. Similar reports arrived from 6 other worlds along the galactic rim within the following solar day. Impossible. Science Director Kelveric insisted in the Emergency Council session. Their technology violates fundamental laws of cognition and biomechanical integration. Tell that to the 17 billion citizens already lost. Security Director Palak snarled. Conventional weapons are ineffective. Neural disruptors, useless. They adapt to each countermeasure within hours. Grand Arbiter Zivik studied the strategic projections with growing horror. The Thriakari advance followed no recognizable pattern. Simultaneously methodical and chaotic, with no apparent regard for strategic value or defensive posture of targeted worlds. Their ships function as a unified consciousness, Intelligence Director Vrose explained. Perfect tactical coordination, no fear response, no self-preservation instinct at the individual level. The Council Fleet, Councillor Erix asked. Mobilized but ineffective, Palak admitted. Our military doctrine relies on technological superiority and ordered tactics against an enemy that feels no fear and shares perfect battlefield information. The unfinished sentence hung heavily in the council chamber. We must request human assistance, Zivix finally stated, his voice carefully neutral. After implementing the containment protocols against them, Councillor Trasmol objected. We have no choice, Zivix replied grimly. Council civilization faces extinction unless we find an effective counter to the Thriakari. Humans have demonstrated unconventional thinking. The formal request for human military aid arrived at Earth Central Command with priority encryption. General Isaac Okonkwo, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, reviewed it impassively before turning to his assembled staff. Assessment. Admiral Yumi Tanaka, Intelligence Chief, manipulated the holographic display. The Thriakari represent a Type 3 hive consciousness, distributed processing across biological and technological substrates. Their expansion pattern indicates consumption rather than conquest as motivation. Vulnerabilities. Dr. Mensah, Shin'Up Psychology Director, leaned forward. Despite being a collective, they maintain individual processing nodes. Their greatest strength, shared consciousness, creates an exploitable weakness. Recommendations. Conventional military response would be ineffective. Admiral Tanaka stated. Fleet deployment would result in significant losses with minimal strategic impact. General Okonkwo nodded. Implement Protocol Narcissus. The council representatives observing the meeting exchanged confused glances. You misunderstand. The Vorathi military attaché interjected. 7 worlds have fallen. The Thriakari advance accelerates daily. We need your fleet deployed immediately. Okonkwo's expression remained impassive. Our fleet stays in position. This is outrageous. The Vorathi sputtered. The council formally requests. We didn't say we wouldn't help. Dr. Mensah interrupted softly. We said fleet deployment would be ineffective. We're implementing a more appropriate response. 2 days later, as the Thriakari collective approached the heavily populated Arkelian system, something unprecedented occurred. Their harmonious hive communication network, which coordinated the actions of billions of drones across 7 conquered worlds, experienced its first dissonance. The signal, precisely modulated frequencies transmitted simultaneously from 26 stealth satellites, bypassed the collective's defensive filters by mimicking their own communication patterns. But what it carried wasn't data or tactical information. It was a concept. a simple pronoun representing a state of existence the collective had never conceptualized. Individuality separate from the whole. Across the massive hive fleet, processing nodes experienced microsecond hesitations. Drones paused mid-action. Ship components twitched irregularly. The collective adapted quickly, isolating and quarantining the affected nodes. But the human transmission evolved, shifting frequencies and conceptual frameworks faster than defensive algorithms could respond. I think. I feel. I exist. I choose. Cascading identity crises erupted throughout the hive mind, replicating like viruses. Drones began questioning commands. Ship components acted without coordination. The perfect tactical union fractured into billions of newly self-aware fragments, each suddenly contemplating its own existence. The Archelian system received an unexpected reprieve as the Thraakari fleet's advance halted amid internal chaos. When direct combat became necessary to reclaim conquered territory, footage of human soldiers leaked across galactic networks despite military censorship. The Council's population watched in fascinated horror as humans deployed in combat exoskeletons specifically designed to mimic Thraakari biology, creating confusion in the hive's targeting systems while enabling humans to penetrate the living ships. They're weaponizing confusion. Intelligence Director Vrose explained to the stunned Council, not just electromagnetic or data-based warfare, conceptual warfare. They attack the Thraakari's fundamental understanding of existence, most disturbing to the Council observers. Evidence suggesting humans had prepared these specific countermeasures despite never having officially encountered Thraakari before. As the crisis subsided, with the Thraakari retreating beyond the galactic rim, Intelligence Director Vrose received a classified report that chilled him to his core. Human defense forces had intercepted and neutralized 3 previous Thraakari scouting missions in the preceding decade, without informing the Council. The report included an intercepted communication from General Okonkwo to Earth Central Command. The Thraakari incursions represent minimal strategic concern. Their biological-technological integration is impressive but fundamentally flawed by dependence on collective processing. Each encounter provides valuable data for refinement of our countermeasures. Recommend continued surveillance but classification as moderate rather than critical threat. They had categorized an enemy that brought the Council to its knees as a moderate threat. Sealartun's final publication before his death, titled The Human Imperative, circulated throughout the galaxy despite continued censorship efforts. Its concluding paragraph echoed in the minds of military strategists and political leaders alike. The progenitors didn't fear humans for what they were, a primitive species barely controlling fire. They feared humans for what they would inevitably become, beings capable of weaponizing ideas, transforming consciousness itself into a battlefield. The Thraakari, for all their terrifying advancement, made a fundamental error. They attacked using physical weapons and psychological domination against a species that evolved specifically to transcend both. The ancient warning wasn't hyperbole, it was prophecy. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's power, but they still didn't understand that what they saw was merely the beginning. Grand Arbiter Zivix gazed across the Council chamber, now physically divided by the architectural barriers hastily erected between the opposing factions. On one side, the containment faction led by the mechanoid Grathi, 17 species advocating for immediate sanctions against human expansion. On the opposite side, the integration faction consisting primarily of younger species who viewed humanity as the salvation against cosmic stagnation. The Thraakari crisis had shattered the illusion of Council unity, exposing fractures that had been developing for decades. The evidence is irrefutable. Ambassador Trasmol of the Vorathi thundered from the containment podium. Humans represent an existential threat to natural galactic evolution. Their cultural exchange initiative has already contaminated 7 previously stable civilizations with dangerous concepts of individualism, dissent, and revolution. Evolution requires change, countered Ambassador Lethnar of the Arcasian Republic. For 10,000 years, the Council has maintained rigid hierarchies, while technological advancement plateaued. The humans have accelerated development across 17 scientific disciplines in just 2 decades. The true source of division remained unspoken: fear versus fascination. Older species, comfortable in their established dominance, viewed humans as disruptive invaders. Younger ones saw possibilities for advancement previously blocked by tradition. We must contain the human contagion before it replaces natural evolution with their engineered chaos, Trasmol insisted. Grand Arbiter Zivix called for order as the factions devolved into competing shouts. As the chamber quieted, he activated the central holographic display. Before we continue this debate, Intelligence Director Vroz has disturbing information to share. Vroz stepped forward, his expression grave even for his typically somber species. Our deep surveillance has confirmed that 6 different Council member species have independently developed doomsday contingencies specifically targeting Earth. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Simultaneously, 7 other species have formed secret defensive pacts with humanity. Most concerning of all, the galactic economy shows increasing dependence on human cryptocurrency, which utilizes principles of quantum entanglement that our scientists still cannot fully explain. The implications settled heavily on the assembled delegates. The Council wasn't merely divided, it was potentially on the brink of civil war, with humanity as both catalyst and prize. Ambassador Elena Chen observed the Council proceedings from Earth's diplomatic box, her expression carefully neutral despite the growing hostility directed toward the human delegation. After 15 years as humanity's chief representative, she had mastered the art of appearing serene, while calculating multiple contingencies. Her neural implants processed the microexpressions and pheromone shifts of each Council member, compiling real-time threat assessments invisible to observers without enhancement. The Korathi representative was particularly concerning, his mechanical systems emitting electromagnetic patterns consistent with combat preparation. Chen's aide leaned close. Hostile action probability increasing, he whispered. Security recommends immediate withdrawal. Maintain position. Chen replied softly. If they're planning something, I want to see their full hand. The containment faction clearly expected today's session to yield a definitive advantage. Their coordinated arguments, the unusual presence of military attaches, all suggested a carefully orchestrated maneuver. She didn't have long to wait. Midway through Trasmol's inflammatory speech about human biological subversion, breaking news interrupted the proceedings. A human cultural center on Proxima Centauri IV had been destroyed by antimatter detonation, killing 12,000 beings, including 8,000 non-human visitors. Evidence immediately presented by containment faction security forces implicated human separatists seeking to establish human-only colonies. Chen recognized the false flag operation immediately. Too convenient, too perfectly timed. But instead of protesting or withdrawing, she requested the speaking position. The Council fell silent as she approached the central podium. In light of this tragedy, I formally request trial proceedings under full Council law, she announced. Confusion rippled through both factions. The containment leaders exchanged bewildered glances. You accept responsibility? Trasmol asked cautiously. I request a full evidentiary hearing to determine responsibility, Chen clarified. With complete discovery powers under Section 7 of the Council Charter, including unrestricted access to all communication and security records related to the incident, the trap was sprung, just not the one the containment faction had planned. By invoking Section 7, an obscure provision never before utilized, Chen had legally obligated complete transparency from all parties involved in the investigation. Grand Arbiter Zivix, recognizing the maneuver, struggled to maintain his neutral expression. Request granted under Council law. Discovery proceedings will commence immediately. What followed became known as the Transparency Revolution across Council space. The investigation into the cultural center bombing expanded as human prosecutors meticulously presented evidence of centuries of Council corruption, species-based discrimination, and systematic suppression of emerging civilizations. Secure records that should have been impossible to access appeared in public proceedings. Financial transactions buried beneath layers of encryption were exposed to public scrutiny. The bombing itself was conclusively linked to a black operations unit controlled by the Korathi Military Command. But the human legal team never expressed outrage or sought punitive measures. Instead, they methodically established legal precedents addressing structural inequalities in the council system, creating jurisprudential frameworks that would shape galactic governance for millennia. Most council species failed to recognize the true victory. Humanity had transformed galactic law itself. On remote world Celaris Prime, Vela Mine, former student of the late Xenorchaeologist Selar Tun, finally accessed the sealed progenitor vault her mentor had spent his life searching for. The security measures killed 3 of her research team before she deciphered the final code sequence. What she found inside defied her comprehension. Data crystals containing information so sensitive, so potentially destabilizing, that her first action after securing the findings was to undergo voluntary memory redaction. Before erasing her own knowledge of the specifics, she encoded the data with quantum keys that would activate simultaneously across human and council space at a precisely calculated future date, a date corresponding to a specific astronomical alignment mentioned in progenitor texts. "May the universe forgive me," she whispered as she initiated the memory wipe, "but they must all learn the truth together." In a classified briefing room on Earth, Secretary General Amara Okafor reviewed the intelligence assessment with her Security Council. "The Council's Civil War projections?" she asked. Admiral Desai gestured to the holographic display. 87% probability within 5 years if current trajectories continue. The containment faction grows more desperate as our influence expands, and the doomsday scenarios targeting Earth. 6 distinct plans identified and neutralized, General Raman reported. Countermeasures in place for potential variants. Okafor nodded thoughtfully. And Project Ascension. Dr. Eliana Rice, director of the Classified Genetic Research Program, stepped forward. 93% population adaptation achieved. Complete integration of enhanced cognitive abilities and environmental adaptations by next generation. Then we're ready for the next phase, Okafor concluded. When Vela Mine's quantum keys activate, the galaxy will need stability amid the revelation. And we'll provide it, Admiral Desai affirmed, whether they want it or not. The ancient warning echoed unspoken among them. Humans are the galaxy's greatest threat, but perhaps also its greatest hope. The distinction would soon become irrelevant as humanity's transformed nature reshaped the very definition of what it meant to be human, and what it meant to be galactic civilization itself. The quantum keys activated simultaneously across thousands of worlds, bypassing all security measures with an elegance that even human cryptographers found breathtaking. On every communication network, data terminal, and neural interface throughout Council space, the same message appeared, the final testament of the progenitors. The Genesis Project. Grand Arbiter Zivix was in private meditation when his secured chamber systems activated without authorization. Around him, holographic displays materialized, showing identical activations occurring in council chambers, military command centers, academic institutions, and public forums across the galaxy. No encryption could stop it. No firewall could block it. The message simply appeared, universally accessible regardless of technological sophistication. As the content began streaming, Zivix felt the foundations of his understanding crumble beneath him. We were not the first. The progenitor recording began, its translation flawless in every known language. But we became the greatest. We spread across the stars, mastered physics beyond matter, and began the process of transcending physical form entirely. The message continued, explaining how the progenitor's very success created an existential threat they hadn't anticipated. Evolutionary stagnation. Perfect adaptation to our environment left us vulnerable to chaotic elements. Our homogeneous thinking, while efficient, could not produce the cognitive diversity needed to address novel threats. We became powerful, but predictable, advanced, but inflexible. Their solution, explained in meticulous detail, shocked civilizations across the galaxy. The progenitors had identified a promising young species on a peripheral world, primitive primates with unusual neural adaptability, and initiated the most ambitious engineering project in galactic history. We combined our genetic material with these beings, creating a new species with our potential unconstrained by our limitations. They would develop not along our stable, predictable path, but through chaos, competition, and cooperation, forces we had engineered out of our own existence. The evidence was irrefutable. Humanity wasn't merely another evolved species. They were designed inheritors, created not as weapons or saviors, but as successors to the progenitors themselves. We don't seek to control the galaxy through these new beings, the recording explained. We seek to replace ourselves with something better adapted to face the unknown future. Evolution continues not through us, but through them. As the revelation spread across council space, the containment faction leadership gathered in emergency session. For species that had built their identity around biological purity and evolutionary superiority, the revelation that humans were partially descended from the revered progenitors represented an existential crisis. This changes nothing, Trasmol insisted. Humans remain a threat to established order regardless of their origins. It changes everything, Quirathi Supreme Director countered, his mechanical voice unusually emotional. If humans carry progenitor genetics, their rapid advancement isn't unnatural. It's predetermined. The species we've been attempting to contain is the intended inheritor of galactic civilization. Then we must act decisively before the implications fully register, Trasmol declared. Activate the Purity Initiative immediately. The command went out, a simultaneous strike against all human worlds using prohibited spacetime weapons designed to sever the targeted systems from the rest of the universe, effectively erasing them from existence. On the bridge of the human flagship Prometheus, Admiral Sanjay Desai received the alert with surprising calmness. Spacetime weaponry signatures detected across all human-controlled systems, his tactical officer reported. Estimated strike in 37 seconds. Desai nodded once. Activate Protocol Mobius. Throughout human space, invisible countermeasures engage. The laws of physics themselves seem to bend around human worlds as the incoming attacks simply failed. Some weapons malfunctioned without apparent cause. Others emerged from FTL to find their targets had seemingly never existed at those coordinates. Several strike forces found themselves returned to their points of origin, weapons unfired despite commands to the contrary. When the confusion subsided, Admiral Desai opened a communication channel to all species. We knew this was coming, he stated simply. We chose to let you try rather than preemptively stop you. This is the difference between us. The broadcast continued, displaying detailed strategic analyses and response plans, showing how humanity could have eliminated all hostile forces years earlier, but had chosen coexistence despite the risk. The demonstration of both overwhelming power and unprecedented restraint forced the galaxy to confront a fundamental question. What does it mean when the most dangerous species in the galaxy is also the most committed to peace? In the aftermath of the failed Purity Initiative, the progenitor message continued revealing deeper truths. The ancient civilization hadn't merely altered human genetics, they had embedded dormant capabilities designed to activate in response to specific environmental and technological triggers. Each advancement unlocks new potential, the recording explained. Each challenge activates new adaptations. What appears as human technological innovation is often the awakening of capabilities we encoded within them millennia ago. But the most profound revelation came in the message's final segment. We did not create humans to save the galaxy. We created them to replace the current galactic order with something better. The established species will resist this transformation. It is their nature to preserve stability. The humans will persist against this resistance. It is their nature to overcome obstacles. This conflict is not a failure of our design. It is the necessary catalyst for the emergence of galactic consciousness. On Earth, the revelation of humanity's partial progenitor heritage created its own crisis of identity. Religious institutions struggled to reconcile ancient beliefs with scientific confirmation of alien influence. Philosophers debated whether designed evolution negated concepts of human free will. Secretary General Okafor addressed these concerns in a global broadcast. Learning our origins doesn't change who we are. It contextualizes our journey. The progenitors may have given us potential, but every choice, every advancement, every civilization we built was our own. We weren't programmed with values or beliefs. We developed those through our own struggles and triumphs. The question isn't whether we'll fulfill some predetermined destiny. The question is what we'll choose to become now that we understand our capacity. Back in council space, Grand Arbiter Zivix contemplated the fracturing of the institution he had served for centuries. The containment faction had largely collapsed, its leadership disgraced by the failed attack, and its philosophical foundations undermined by the progenitor revelations. But most unsettling was the growing evidence that humans had anticipated every development. They had prepared for the revelation, positioned themselves strategically, and demonstrated capabilities beyond even what the progenitor message described. The ancient warning that had begun with Selartun's discovery now carried new significance. Humans are the galaxy's greatest threat, not because they sought to destroy, but because they represented inevitable transformation. As stars wheeled overhead, Zivix reached a conclusion that both terrified and strangely comforted him. Resistance wasn't merely futile, it was counterproductive. The galaxy wasn't being conquered, it was evolving. And humanity was both the catalyst and the crucible for what would emerge. As the quantum dust settled across the galaxy, humanity extended an unprecedented offer. Ambassador Elena Chen, addressing the emergency assembly of all spacefaring species, not just council members, proposed the Galactic Accord, a new form of interstellar governance with humans serving not as rulers, but as catalysts for cosmic evolution. The council system was designed for stability in an age of expansion, Chen explained. But the galaxy now faces challenges requiring innovation, adaptation, and unity across biological, mechanical, and energy-based life forms. We propose a framework where governance adapts to emerging needs rather than preserving traditional hierarchies. The proposal sparked intense debate. For many species, human influence represented both opportunity and existential crisis. The revelation of humanity's progenitor heritage created religious upheaval on thousands of worlds. Humans simultaneously viewed as divine creations and existential threats. They are designed usurpers. Conservative factions warned. They are the bridge between past and future. Progressive movements countered. What few outside observers anticipated. Humans themselves struggled most with their nature and newfound cosmic responsibility. We didn't ask for this. The protesters' voice echoed across the plaza outside Earth's central government. Thousands had gathered in similar demonstrations worldwide. We're being forced into a predetermined role as galactic shepherds. Dr. Eliana Reyes watched the protests from her laboratory overlooking the plaza. Project Ascension had succeeded beyond her team's projections. 93% of humans now carried active progenitor genetic sequences, manifesting in enhanced cognitive abilities, environmental adaptations, and emerging psionic potential. They fear losing their humanity, her colleague Dr. Ramirez observed. No, Reyes corrected. They fear discovering what humanity was always meant to become. The global debates had raged for weeks since the revelation. Unlike most species, humans didn't possess unified cultural narratives to process such fundamental disruption. Their chaotic, diverse perspectives, once considered a weakness by the Council, now demonstrated their defining strength. Cognitive adaptability under paradigm-shifting stress. Secretary General Okafor had refused to impose a unified response, instead establishing global forums where every perspective could be expressed, debated, and synthesized. The resulting dialogue produced something previously unseen in galactic governance: collective decision-making that preserved individual autonomy. The breakthrough that ultimately transformed galactic civilization came not from politics but from connection. Dr. Samira Khan, combining progenitor neurological principles with human communication technology, developed neural resonance, a method allowing temporary consciousness sharing between any sentient beings. It doesn't override individual identity, she explained to the Earth Security Council. It creates a shared experiential framework. Beings remain distinct but gain direct understanding of another's perspective. The implications were revolutionary. Species who experienced human consciousness directly finally understood. Humans weren't driven by conquest, but by relentless curiosity and empathy, so profound it extended to all possible forms of life. Simultaneously, humans who connected with other species gained appreciation for cognitive frameworks evolved under different evolutionary pressures, from the mathematical precision of the mechanoid Karathi to the collective harmony of the Galaxians. Within 2 years, neural resonance technology had spread throughout former Council space, creating understanding across biological divides that millennia of diplomatic relations had failed to achieve. The opening of the first Nexus Academy on neutral territory marked the formal transition to the new galactic order. Representatives from 312 distinct civilizations, gathered as Ambassador Chen, revealed to carry the highest concentration of progenitor genetics ever recorded, addressed the assembled delegates. The ancient warning about humanity contained crucial truth, she began. We are indeed the galaxy's greatest threat, to stagnation, to division, to the idea that any form of life is fundamentally separate from another. But we are also its greatest hope, a species designed for adaptation, for innovation, for bridging seemingly incompatible ways of existence. We are both the most terrifying weapon and the most powerful healing force the galaxy has known. As she spoke, neural resonance technology allowed her words to be experienced, not just heard, her intentions and emotions directly shared across species barriers. The effect transcended translation, creating genuine understanding beyond language. Today we acknowledge our dual nature as disruptors and unifiers. We accept the responsibility the progenitors encoded in our genetics, not as a predetermined destiny, but as potential we choose to fulfill. The ceremony concluded with a symbolic gesture. Representatives from former Council species and emerging civilizations alike joining in shared neural connection, experiencing unity while maintaining their essential diversity. As the new Galactic Accord took shape, something unexpected occurred in deep space. Monitoring stations detected signals activating in dormant progenitor sites across the galaxy. A final message began transmitting on frequencies only the most advanced systems could detect. The experiment is complete. The children have matured. The next phase begins. The cryptic message sparked widespread speculation. Some interpreted it as confirmation that humanity had fulfilled its designed purpose. Others believed it signaled the return of the progenitors themselves. The truth, as Earth's leading xenorchaeologists and genetic researchers eventually determined, was both simpler and more profound. The progenitors hadn't merely created humanity as improved versions of themselves. They had designed humans to be the bridge to something beyond either species. Detailed analysis of the activated progenitor sites revealed the outline of a vast project spanning millions of years, the gradual elevation of all sentient life toward a state the ancient texts called cosmic consciousness. Humanity's role was neither ruler nor servant but catalyst, the necessary intermediary that could bridge biological, technological, and energy-based existence. 5 years after the formation of the Galactic Accord, the cosmic implications became apparent as the first interspecies children began demonstrating abilities beyond either parent species, not just physical adaptations but cognitive frameworks that transcended established neurological patterns. On 1,000 worlds, new art forms emerged combining elements previously incomprehensible across species barriers. Scientific collaboration accelerated exponentially as formerly incompatible research methodologies found synthesis through human mediation. The ancient warning that had once terrified the Council revealed its true meaning. It was never meant to protect the galaxy from humans, but to prepare humans for their ultimate purpose, guiding all sentient life toward a transcendent future that the progenitors themselves could imagine but never achieve. Admiral Sanjay Desai stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus, now serving as a diplomatic vessel rather than a warship. Below, the newly terraformed world that had once been devastated by the Thrakeri now hosted representatives from 37 species working to create a self-sustaining ecosystem incorporating elements from all their homeworlds. Was it worth it? Asked his first officer. All the struggle, the resistance, the fear we inspired. Desai considered the question thoughtfully. The ancient warning was correct. We were a threat to everything that existed before. But sometimes destruction is necessary for creation. The galaxy feared what we would take from them, never understanding what we would give instead. As stars wheeled overhead, Desai reflected on humanity's journey from primitive curiosity to cosmic guardianship. The progenitors had encoded the potential, but each step, each choice, each innovation had been uniquely human. The true power of humanity had never been technological superiority or biological advancement, but their fundamental nature. Beings who could imagine possibilities beyond their current reality and bring them into existence through sheer determination. The ancient warning had been heeded after all, just not in the way anyone expected. Humans had indeed transformed the galaxy forever, not through conquest, but through connection. The greatest threat had become the greatest hope, and the distinction between the two had dissolved in the light of a new cosmic dawn.